I studied abroad there last year, and yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable. I went with the Casa de la Mateada program, and it absolutely changed or further developed the person who I thought I was, the person who I meant to be. It changed my worldview, and it helped me see so much more about what I'm called to do in the future. I worked in a multi-purpose center. It was a very humble community that was built on a landfill, so they were still struggling with basic things like running water, which they just got. They have dirt roads, so getting the buses there for transportation is a big problem. And those are just the kind of things that they live with. But I worked at this preschool / daycare, and I worked in 2- and 4-year-old classrooms, so I was a teacher's aide, and it was absolutely exhausting. The schools, they don't have a lot of supplies, and there's maybe 30 kids to one not particularly well-prepared teacher. So it was a lot of chaos. It was a lot of kids throwing things everywhere, throwing punches and toys and wiping boogers and helping them eat food and picking it up off the floor because they were messy. But a lot of what the kids taught me so much was about one of the pillars of the program, which is accompaniment, which has totally shifted the way I see service. Because doing service before was always like, you went and did service for another individual. It was like, what can I give you? And it had this kind of superiority and inferiority complex. But the service of this program focuses on is more an accompaniment. Kind of like, I'm just here to be with you, to know you, and to know your struggles and your joys, and what makes you happy, and what makes you hurt, and I want to share that with you. So my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I went on a trip to Jamaica after I came back from Argentina, and it was absolutely amazing. I was actually a bit nervous for it because I'd spent 3 months in Argentina, and it was a very intentional program about community and really trying to understand what accompanying another person meant. And one of the places we went to was an elderly home right outside of Kingston, and it was absolutely amazing. I spent most of my time reading to this blind man named Mr. Herman, and all he wanted me to do was to read him the Bible. So I got his Bible that was in a black trash bag, that was in another black trash bag, that was in another black trash bag, that was in a white trash bag, that was in a suitcase. So it was like a mission. I have to get his Bible. So we finally got it, and I opened up and I was like, okay, Mr. Herman, what would you like me to read? And he was like,
Genesis. Start at the beginning.
So I started reading Genesis. And God said, let there be light, and there was light, and God saw.
It was good.
And I'm reading. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas, and God saw.
It was good.
Every time. And God saw all that he had made.
And it was very good.
He just had this huge smile on his face the entire time I'm reading him. And it was just so amazing to hear this book that I've grown up with my entire life. You hear it in Mass, and it's just like, yeah, it's Genesis, yeah. But what really got my heart that day was, as I was ready to go, everyone's getting ready to say goodbye a hug and I said, you know, this might not mean anything to you, but I just want to thank you for everything you're doing for these kids, the love that you pour into this school, and how much you believe in working with these kids. The look on his face was so unforgettable. It reminded me of this time that I was in Argentina, and I went to this small, very beautiful parish. And I walked in early to the church, and the sisters were getting the church ready, and immediately I was embarrassed because they came up to me and were hugging me, and they were like, how long will you be here? And they were hugging me, and one of the sisters came up to me and she just gave me this big hug. She just embraced me. And then she was like, the way that she gave me this look was like, I love you. Thank you for coming here. And immediately I just felt tears rolling down my cheeks because it was so crazy. Because I wasn't looking into her eyes anymore. I was looking into God's eyes, which is just so weird to retell and think about. But when I close my eyes and I see her face, it's just such a powerful feeling that I get with just so much peace and joy and love that's so innocent and wise at the same time. That was the same look I saw in Mr. Grant's eyes when I talked to him. I mean, I didn't do anything. I just played around with a bunch of kids for a while. When I got back onto the bus, I was just so full. Just the best way to say it. When you can feel your heart exploding with so much joy and so much love and also sadness and disappointment, because you realize the situation that many of these people have to enter. But you feel so full of every positive emotion because they have so much love to share with you. So, finally, we get to Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charities in Jamaica. And they give us a nice tour, and the place is absolutely beautiful. And I sat next to this woman called Miss Virginia, and she was 103 years old. And that just baffled me, because this woman had more energy than I had on some days. Right. And the crazy part was that we couldn't have a real full conversation because it was really hard to understand her accent. And it was hard for her to understand my accent, and you know, her vocal cords are 103 years old. But one of the women, I don't know for sure if she was a sister, but she was one of the volunteers who worked with home. She said, does anybody want to sing to Jesus? And all the little ladies were so excited. And in unison, they all started singing the same song. And she was singing along as well as her little vocal cords would allow her to. And she's moving and dancing and singing praise. It was just so beautiful to see how these women come together to sing praise to someone they love so much. And then Miss Virginia put her arm around me, and I couldn't sing because I didn't know the song, but I did kind of go along with it. And then Miss Virginia grabs my hands and raises them over my head, and she was just like shaking because there was so much power of the Holy Spirit. And then she just gives me a kiss on my cheek and wraps her arms around me again, and then she looks me straight in the eyes with the same look that Mr. Grant had given me and the Sisters of Argentina, like into the depths of my soul. And so lovingly and so gently, she says, I love you. Thank you for being here with me today. And of course, I just lose it. And she just keeps singing, praise Jesus. And it was so unbelievable. And again, I just walked out of there with my heart feeling very heavy and very light at the same time. Just full of love to share with others. Love for each other. That really comes time when we spend time together with each other. Father Greg talks about you're not just there to serve the other person, or it's not what can I give you, it's just how can I spend my time acknowledging the burden that you have to carry. chapel where he was killed. And I just sat there and I just closed my eyes and I just pictured Oscar Romero standing at the altar, looking to these people and really being like, love each other. And then you just hear these piercing bullets hit him. And he was preaching exactly what he believed. I think he's one of my biggest role models. So there's one more thing. It's, I think, the importance of my family to me. I started seeing what a domestic church is. My friends started talking about it, and then I really started to see how much I owe to my parents. That is something that comes to my mind every so often. Their sacrifices and everything they've done for us are a real testament to God's love. Regardless of whether or not I've been angry or I've been stupid or whatever, there will always be unconditional love through my parents and my sisters, my grandparents too. And they're always here to remind me how fortunate I am and how much I've been blessed with. And I think that for me, that just really shows God's love.
Krista, Chinchilla.
I've had the delight of interviewing Krista, and I shared what I wrote about her to Judith and Dory. I was just, this woman is so amazing and so beautiful and so heart-centered and so all about giving. And I'm so glad that she was picked to receive this award. You're gorgeous, Krista.